Hey guys, so it's really late. I've been up late a lot. There's a lot of environmental things going on. And as I stated in other videos, I know that the environment affects me a lot. And of course, here comes the cat. He's gonna hop that. Well, come on. Come. So, I'm going to make this video about again on a relationship topic about attachment styles. And I know in previous videos I had stated some stuff because a lot of my spiritual journey has been looking within, when we reach that point in our life where we self-reflect, and we all have that inner child. And I think for a lot of us, that when that inner child was never resolved, we get stuck in that position. And so that's been me. And so this is for, all those people out there who know that they're really old, but they're kids underneath, because that's what I've been, dealing with, is the kid in me. And so I had learned that my attachment style was anxious. And this is, it leads you on the never feeling good enough, feeling either you're not enough or you're too much. And that is very much the way that I felt as a kid, is feeling like I'm too much this and not enough this. And for me, it always been like, I'm too much a guy and not enough girl, too much masculine, not enough feminine. I'm too talkative, but yet then I be quiet and then I'm not talkative enough. And so it creates this anxiousness. And those are for kids that never really had like a safe space. If you grew up in chaos, or if you grew up in households that didn't teach you about emotional regulation, then you might make up your own mind about what it is, or not know, anything other than this is how you're supposed to behave. Because I can remember as a kid being told, like, you better wipe that look off your face, and thinking, like, so I'm not allowed to cry? I can't cry in public. That's what you mean? Oh, now I'm supposed to smile, and just like a lot of having negative feelings, but not being able to express them, because I would be so mad because I would get in trouble for the smallest things and then be sent to my room, after being physically punished, after having my mouth washed out with soap, after being silenced, and be sent to my room just to sit there and think about what I did, and never know how long it was until I was going to get out of grounding, because it seems like I could never do enough to get out of being grounded. And, that does something to kids' psyches of, I was grounded from talking to friends, grounded from playing, grounded from everything, and just had to sit and think about what I did and how I was going to fix it. And for a lot of it, I couldn't understand, like, what was the big deal about what I did. And thinking, like, this is so unfair. And I know that's why, as an adult, I have a strong sense for injustice. And injustice just gets to me, especially when it's being done to other people. But for me, and I was able to advocate for those other people, but for me, I didn't know how to advocate for myself, other than, because I would try to express myself and then be told, not that way, and then think, like, I'm not doing that right, Now I'm being too quiet, now I'm being too loud, now I'm being this, and it just creates anxiety in a person. And so I constantly had this anxiety. And I tried so many different anti-anxiety medications and, you know, the different kinds of breathing exercises and things like that. Nothing seemed to work because I hadn't really dealt with the underlying issues of it, which goes all the way back to childhood. But so if your emotions are caught in that, and then you have relationships where the other person is also anxious, then both of you have a lot of anxiety and nobody knows what to do and everybody's on edge. Or if you have a relationship with somebody who's avoidant, then it becomes the opposite of, that would just increase my anxiety because I would think like it all issues around abandonment, and I would think, well, if I get upset, you're gonna leave. If I do anything wrong, you're gonna leave. And so I guess this is more for the people that have had anxious attachment styles, because I know in relationships with me, and especially the past several years, I mean, I've even looked like a decade back for things that I can remember. And that's part of it. You have to be able to look back and remember what actually happened and be able to evaluate yourself, kind of step above the situation, not put yourself in it again, and then reflect back and think, like, how were you feeling at the time and how did you behave and what actually was going on. And I know for me, this, I've spent the past several years in a relationship where I put all of my trust in this person, and because they swore to me that I would never be alone again, and then they left, and then they came back, and then they left again, and then back, and then left again, and then back, and then left again, and that just created in me this anxiety that was so overwhelming of, when a person's left you like 100 times, and each time they come back, they say they're not going to leave again, and then they leave again. Like, it forced me to put up boundaries and regulate my own emotions, figure out things on my own, because I was like, obviously this person isn't going to stay and help me, and if people in your life haven't learned to regulate their own emotions, and emotions make them uneasy, then they might just come up with a solution of being avoidant, because some people can do that. Some people can leave a situation and it makes them feel better. But for me, that wasn't the case. For me, with having that anxious attachment style, it was not the case for me. For me, it was like, if you leave, I'm just more anxious. Can I know when you're coming back? I had researched so much about attachment styles, about relationships, about what you can do, the tools you can use, like things. But if a person in your relationship is not willing to do anything differently because they think it's too hard, or they don't know how, or they're afraid and they're fearful, then there's nothing you can do. It doesn't matter what you do. And for me, in a job that I had, a lot of it was people are very emotional when they're homeless. They're fearful, they're afraid, they're angry, they're in negative emotions. I don't know that many people who are like, yay, I'm homeless with nothing. I'm so happy to be here. And that's something, people working in crisis services or in trauma service, services know. Like, you have to have a good foundation within yourself. You have to have a support system around you because, like I said in the previous video, you can't walk through water without getting wet. And that was something in videos, training videos for work that I had watched. I did not know how much my job would affect me emotionally. And it did help me a lot of hearing and seeing myself in the people that I served, that I helped, is they would say things and I'd be like, yes, I know how that feels. I'm sorry that happened to you. But that's not happening to you right now. I understand that that emotion is there. But we have to, make it to the next thing. We have to go into this place and try to get you the help that you need. We have to be able to navigate the way that the 3D world is working right now, which is not that easy. And so it forced me to regulate my emotions more and more. And still, at the end of the day, sometimes it was so much because I would feel like empathy for people, and I would feel like I've been in the water all day long, helping people out. Or I've been in the fire all day long helping people out. I need help. And then I would come home and I would have to be the one there to do it too. And it just became too much a lot of times. And one thing I learned is, we're all energy based. And so if you have somebody that, when you make friendships, when you make relationships, you attract people to you in whatever frequency that you're in. So, when you can be on the same page with somebody in a positive frequency, and you can be on the same page with somebody in a negative. But it's all like mind frames. Are you thinking the same thing? Are you viewing things the same way? Because I could empathize with people, but be able to say, okay, well, I have the knowledge to guide you to this service that you need, or I have the information to help you out with this. But when you're serving in a job like that and you don't have a support system that's helping you, then you feel that way too. For me, a lot of times it was like, okay, well then I'm going to go home and take a bath and then get up the next day and do it all over again, and try to be tough, because that's the way I was raised, is be tough. Don't show vulnerability. Weakness is not a good thing. Vulnerability is a scary thing, because people will hurt you. I had a very catastrophizing mother who was like, the world's scary and everything's going to happen to you and everybody's going to get you. And if you do that, you're going to break your neck. And, and that created this anxious attachment style in me of like, looking for an anchor somewhere, saying like, I need help with things. And I had always thought, I was even taught like asking for help is a sign of weakness. So because I had been shamed or, you know, um, told what I should have, could have, would have done if only I'd listened. And so I wouldn't ask for help until I absolutely needed it. And even then felt guilty about asking for help, and even then felt fearful about how I would be perceived asking for help. And I know for me, there was trust issues, just like for my clients, where I would tell the person I was with, like, if the people who you think are supposed to be there for you, if you thought family was supposed to be there for you and they aren't, and they choose not to be, then why would I think that anybody else would? If I was taught that the world is a dangerous place and anything can get me at any time, then I'm going to be fearful and I'm going to need extra safety. I would ask for details about things. I would ask for advance notices about things, because I would say, like, when things happen suddenly and things change suddenly, I know that I'm good at it. I'm very flexible and adaptable. I was raised that way. I moved around a lot. I was a military brat. I went here to here to here to here. I was a military wife. I went here to here to here. So that was a strength. But the feelings that would give me weren't necessarily positive feelings. Be like, I'm good at it, but just because I'm good at it doesn't mean it makes me feel good. So in order to help me to feel good, could I have some advance notice? Could I know what's going to happen in the near future so that I can know that everything's going to be okay as far as like the things that we can control? And this person, wasn't raised that way. Or maybe, the way that they had adapted to the world was just to be avoidant. And that was the way that I was raised, was like everybody else avoids everything. Nobody talks about anything. Just sweep it under the rug and avoid everything. Let's all pretend and not talk about the elephant in the room, or thinking like I'm the elephant in the room. And so I think when we have those kinds of intimate relationships that bring out that inner child in us, it can be wonderful in ways, because you can experience, that childlike wonder and laughter and joy that children, if you look at children, they're so happy about things. But if a lot of your childhood was not happy, which a lot of mine wasn't, looking back, that I think like I was just told everything to do all the time. It was so structured. There's a right and a wrong way to eat. There is a right and a wrong way to talk. There's a right and a wrong way for everything. And I did not like being controlled. And then if I did something that was judged as the wrong thing, then I got punished. Then I got, physical punishment. And then I would speak out and then I got silenced. And a lot of that is emotional punishment of like, it doesn't matter how you feel. You're going to do what I say. And then I would get sent to my room and grounded for long periods of time. And grounded from talking to friends, grounded from extracurricular things, grounded from forms of communication to the outside world. And so I sat in a lot of silence. And it was the silence that would get to me, because then I would just sit in it and think like, I'm just bad all the time. Like, uh, I'm supposed to be in this cage because I'm bad. And that can teach somebody learned helplessness, where they just give up. And for me, I've never been the give up person. It was like I had a lot of conflicting. I think we get a lot of conflicting messages in homes like that, where it was like, keep trying, keep trying, keep trying to be better. Eventually, you'll get it right. But if you keep trying and knowing, like, I can't get it perfectly right, sometimes I'm going to mess up, but you get punished every time, then it creates this sadness within, and I think anger too, without, and this disconnect of where you just think like, so you've already got your mind made up that I'm bad because I can't get everything perfect. And children raised to be adults, at such a young age, you're a kid. It's like I've always known, like, I'm a kid, I can't do all this stuff. And why do I have to do all this stuff? But feeling like, physically, I'd be like, I feel like I'm 100 years old. And then also, emotionally, I feel like I'm like 10, maybe. And it's been the past several years of experiencing different things that I realized, like, I really like live events. I had not been to that many live events in my life. And I said, there's something about live events. Well, it's the energy, that's there. But if your home didn't have a lot of positive energy and a negative energy, then that's what you might relate to normal. And I think for me, like, I always was rebelling. I was always like, but I want out. Can I get out of being grounded? Can I go do this thing? Can I, not everything is horrible and not everything's going to kill me. But so in helping the population that I helped the past several years, a lot of people said they felt the same way. Like, there are these kids trapped in adult bodies that just feel like they're bad and not wanted and rejected and neglected. And I think a lot of us, we don't have to be street homeless to feel that way. Because we can relate to a lot of those feelings. I've always had that feeling of feeling, accepted until I wasn't perfect. Accepted for all of the good things in me and rejected for all of the bad things in me. To where I'd be like, I can't be happy 100% of the time. I'm a human being. I'm reactive sometimes. Sometimes, like I had said before, sometimes I get upset with the smallest little things. And then I'd be like, why am I so upset about this? Was I already upset before? Am I exhausted? Am I hungry? It's like we learn to reparent ourselves and ask ourselves, like, what's going on with me? What's making me feel this way? Is it something I did? Is it something somebody else did? Is it the external environment, or is it my internal environment? And so I had done a lot of mindfulness. That was one thing that's helped me a lot, is teaching myself to slow down, teaching myself that not everything has to be done. I always felt like I was going to be inspected. You know, this person I was with asked me one time, like, why are you constantly picking up? Like, do you think that my mother's going to come and inspect the place? And I was like, yes, because that was what my mom did. Would like inspect it. Like, that's as a child up until adulthood. I was like, things are getting inspected all the time. Let me check and see if you did a good enough job cleaning your room. Well, what about under your bed? Well, what about this? Like we were little soldiers. And me just constantly being like, I just feel like I can't get it good enough. I feel like I'm always messing up. I feel like there's something that I did wrong because I'm going to get in trouble for that. I'm going to get punished for that. And so if you're near somebody that has the same energy going on, or if you attach, your energy to somebody else, then when they're sad, you're sad. When they're feeling negative, you're feeling negative. When they're happy, you're happy. But if those of us who weren't taught how to get out of those negative feelings, because there was no conflict resolution, because nothing was discussed, because we were shunned, because we were given the silent treatment, because we were left to figure out things on our own that don't make sense, where we're trying to figure out, like, what all did I do bad? If we don't have that support system that can help us out, then we get stuck in that. And I think for me, I had been stuck in this always feeling like I'm going to be left, because I've had a lot of people leave me in my life. I had to leave a lot of people when I was younger. I had to leave a lot of people when I was married and we moved around. And then I had moved around, I never owned my own home. So I had to move around a lot. And moving here, I moved here to be with somebody. And then having that person leave me over and over and over again, made me so anxious, made me chasing, clinging, begging for attention, documenting, like, you've spent one day out of 2 weeks with me. Don't tell me that you love me more than all of the things and that you're going to be there for me all the time when you're not. The reality is you're not. Because I'm going to pay attention to what's going on in front of my eyes. I'm going to pay attention to what's going on in my hearing. Don't tell me that you are talking to me if you only said hello one time in 5 days. Because the reality is you're not talking to me. I'm working on my emotional regulation, because I know that relationship on top of my work and everything that was going on sent me into such an emotional state of feeling like no matter what I do, it's never good enough for anybody. I had the majority of clients would say thank you for anything, even for listening. But I had some people that, because I didn't have money to give them, might get upset at me and then yell and scream or cry because they're reactive at the time. And it was my job to not take it personally, to know, you're just going through something right now that you have a need and I can't meet that need. And I can't be anybody's savior. I can't be everything to everybody all the time because I'm not a miracle worker. So for those of you who have had anxious attachment styles, a lot of it is regulating our emotions, is learning how to sit in them and feel them and distinguish, what is going on right now. Is it truly devastating? Am I going to die if that person walks out the door? Am I going to fall down and cry if I can't find something that I know that I have? Can I be the kind parent to myself and talk myself through this and tell myself that it'll all be okay, that it's a moment in time, that it is going to pass, that reality is that I'm just overwhelmed, that, I feel a certain way. And if I can talk myself through it, if I can be the bridge for myself, that's where that separation and individuation comes in, like reaching back down and like parenting that inner child in yourself that never got that from the people around you because maybe they didn't know how to. Maybe they were just busy. Maybe they were taught differently. So it's been me reaching back on the younger me, which I think for those of us who have felt like kids in adult bodies our whole lives, it's me sometimes on a daily basis saying what part of this inner child of myself is crying out. Thinking right now like, oh, I feel like I'm grounded because I can't go anywhere because, my car is still broke in the driveway. And telling myself, no, you're not grounded. You can go places. You can walk. You can call an Uber if you want to pay the money to go somewhere. Your choices might be limited, but you don't have to stay in a room staring at the walls thinking about you're a bad person, you're a bad kid that's done wrong, and nobody loves you. And, there's some, I think it was in a book, like maybe it's a song about you're all bad and go eat worms or whatever. But I've had to do that for myself. And so if this helps somebody out there, to know mindfulness really helps of grounding yourself as far as what's going on around me. Can I name things around me? Can I name things that I can feel? How is my body feeling? Like, what thoughts are going through my head? Are those thoughts true? Can I open up my eyes and see, what's actually happening? Can I talk myself out of this emotion that seems to be anchoring me to the bottom of an ocean and tell myself, you're not drowning. No, you're not chained. Those are imaginary things going on, or that's how you're feeling, but just because you're feeling that way doesn't make it true at the time. But if you have relationships that have a different attachment style, then that attachment style might hurt you. If you're anxious and somebody else is avoidant, then every time they leave, it's going to hurt you. If you put yourself in a people-pleasing position where all you're trying to do is make them happy, and so that they can stay good. Because if they're not happy, they're going to leave, then you enable people to treat you however they want to treat you, to know that they can leave and ignore you forever and just pop up one day and do it all over again. And I think in my past I had been avoidant of not thinking that it was okay to talk things out because I was silenced, not thinking that it was okay to express my emotions because I was punished for them, and then punished for my reactions to them, and then punished some more with the silent treatment, and punished some more with not being able to go places, and it seemed like just this never-ending thing of punishment. That I'd be like, can I ever get out? Can I ever get out of this cage? One thing I've learned is I'm not in a cage. I'm not a caged animal. Just because sometimes I felt like it, or because I felt like people have put me in cages. I'm not anchored at the bottom of the ocean. I'm not caged. And, I'm not a caged lion. I'm not a caged bird. That we have the key to that cage. If we teach ourselves to be helpless, about learned helplessness, where we just give up, think we have no choice, then that cage can be wide open and we wouldn't step out. But for me, I've been stepping out more and more and more and saying, I'm not caged. Nobody's going to cage me. I can fly. I can roam. I can swim. I can do all those things. I'm a person. Sometimes I'm this certain way, and sometimes I'm that certain way. Sometimes I feel more masculine, and sometimes I feel more feminine. Sometimes I'm loud, and sometimes I'm quiet. But if anybody ever wanted to know, why are you like that right now, I would tell them. I've been the person. If you want to know how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, ask me. I'll tell you. But sometimes what I tell you, you may not like. Because sometimes it might be me that's making me feel this way. And sometimes it might be you that's making me feel this way. And I'm willing to take my portion of blame, of my actions or lack of actions, my words or lack of words. But the other person, if you have a relationship, the other person has to be willing to do that too. It can't be one or the other. It can't be about right or wrong. It can't be black and white. So hopefully for you anxious people out there, look into some herbal remedies that may help with anxiety. If your memory is not that great, there are different herbs that could help with that. If your body hurts because you're anxious all the time, and that means you're feeling everything all the time, then try to, sometimes Epsom salt baths help, breathing exercises helps, meditation helps, writing stuff down. I would tell my clients journal. Sometimes it helps to get it out. I know for me it does. For me, vocalizing really helps. It's like I talk myself through things. A lot of times I figure out solutions while I'm talking. And I promise you, like, the anxiety will calm some. It's very hard when you're in trauma and crisis to regulate yourself to be able to do those things. And sometimes you're not able to all the time. And if you have partners and you know this is how you get, you can express it to them and explain to them, like, this is how I'm feeling right now, and this is what I need for you to do. And if that comes them out, then maybe they can know. Maybe what you need is a moment. Maybe what you need is somebody sitting beside you. Maybe what you need is something written to see. Maybe writing to yourself saying, I'm just anxious right now. Something, because we all need help. It's okay to not be okay, to admit it. And for those of us who were raised where it was not okay to be not okay, I'm sorry that happened to you. And we're all on this journey to help each other and help ourselves. So I hope this helps, and I'll chat with you next time.